talk about junctional rhythms. Before we get started, however, let's review something real quick. If, let's say this is our lead 2, which is a positive lead, if a signal is traveling towards a positive lead, it will give us a positive deflection on our ECG paper. If a signal is traveling away from a positive lead, it will give us a negative deflection on our ECG paper. Once we have an understanding of this, the rest is easy. So, let's talk about it. AV node consists of 3 different zones with 3 different properties. At the very top, we have what is called the transition zone. The job of the transition zone is to receive the signals coming from the SA node through the internodal pathways. At the center, we have what is referred to as the compact zone. Now, the job of the compact zone is to receive the signal coming from the transition zone and slowing it down to allow for atrial kick and ventricular filling. And finally, we have the trigger zone. Trigger zone receives the signal from the compact zone and shoots it down the His bundle and left and right bundle branches to allow for ventricular depolarization. When the AV node is responsible for a junctional beat or a junctional rhythm, it is important to understand that that signal or those signals can be coming from any of these 3 areas of the AV node. And depending on which area is responsible, you could have different possibilities as far as the P waves with your junctional rhythm. If signals are generated in the transition zone, which is this area right over here, they will hit the atria first. Then the signal or these signals have to travel through the slow conduction of the compact zone before they can hit the trigger zone and shoot down the His bundle to the right and left bundle branches to allow for ventricular depolarization. And as you recall, let's say this is our lead 2. As you recall, when a signal travels away from a positive lead, it will give us a negative deflection on our ECG. And for this reason, what you will end up with is an inverted P wave before each QRS complex, because the atria are depolarizing first and then the ventricles. And these atria are depolarizing from the AV node up towards the top of the heart. Because the signals are going away from our lead 2, for that reason, we'll have a negatively deflected P wave. When the compact zone is responsible for signals, one of 2 different scenarios can occur. In the first scenario, the signal only travels down the compact zone to the trigger zone and down the His-Purkinje network. In the second scenario, the signal travels down the compact zone as well as up the compact zone and to the atria. However, in both scenarios, you will end up with no P waves at all, because either the atria will not contract it at all, or the atria and the ventricles contracted at the same time, and the ventricular contraction actually masked the atrial contraction. And finally, if the signals are coming from the trigger zone, or what we call infranodal signals, what happens is that the signal will shoot down the His-Purkinje network and depolarizes the ventricles. However, then the signal has to go through the slow conduction of the compact zone before it can reach the atria. And for that reason, what you will end up with is a ventricular contraction first and then an atrial contraction. We call these retrograde P waves.